Hello, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to Sunny Side of the Dome. Sunny Side of the Dome is brought to you by Jays from the Couch. We stream, and before I forget, I'm your host, Karen Soutar. How do I forget to introduce myself? I'm here to talk some Blue Jays baseball with you for the next half hour or so. Sunny Side of the Dome does stream, brought to you by Jays from the Couch. We stream live Thursdays at 6 p.m. on Jays from the Couch's YouTube channel. There's also links available on our Facebook page and our Twitter page. So on any one of those things, you can follow along live. And a quick heads up, actually, about next week. Next week, Sunny Side of the Dome will be at 7 p.m., not at 6, due to the fact that there is a Blue Jays game that is scheduled to start at 3:37 Eastern Time out in Oakland. So hopefully the Jays will be finishing off a series win then, and well, we'll have lots of positive things to talk about. If you like the content here at Sunny Side of the Dome, there's lots more where that came from. There's a Jays from the Couch's main podcast. That's Monday evenings at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. That's hosted by Sean Doyle. Sean does a great job. He has lots of different guests, variety of guests, whether it's a Jays from the Couch writer, whether it's a professional media person such as Shai Davidi, Keegan Matheson, or even some Blue Jays players or prospects. So that's always very interesting. Make sure you check that out if you haven't been already. And if you missed the live version, it's also available as an actual podcast. So anywhere you get podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, any quality podcast carrier will have Jays from the Couch nowadays. And the other show, which has been on for a while, which is always very interesting to tune into, is the Unfag Circle. That's Tuesdays at 6 p.m. And that's hosted by the feckless wonder, Steve Feck, my colleague, partner in crime, so to speak, with Jays from the Couch. And Steve, as I said, is always very interesting. Steve is a smart guy. He has some interesting opinions. So sometimes his opinions are a little different. You might not always agree with what he has to say. He'll usually make you laugh at some point, and you might learn some things that you didn't know before. So definitely check that out if you haven't already been doing so. And happy Thursday evening, everybody. How's it going? No Blue Jay game again today. I just almost feel deprived and off days. I know I'm just too addicted to Blue Jays baseball. I don't know how everybody else feels, or if you're as into it as I am. I know I'm very, very into it. I doubt there's many people anywhere that are bigger fans of the Toronto Blue Jays. So I'm going to talk. The main thing I'm going to get into this week is the past week and what happened and what I like and what I didn't like so much and what I see happening going forward. Before I get to that point, as usual, some housekeeping items, some transactions during the week and so forth. So I believe it was around this time last week that they were telling us that help was on the way, that there were probably going to be some activations pretty soon. So the two relief pitchers that were that they said were coming back did come back. So Tyler Chatwood, he was activated actually last Friday. He's gotten into a few games and he just picked up right where he left off. He's been fantastic. 3 outings, 3.2 inning or 3 2/3 innings pitched with 0 runs allowed. Like what an off-season acquisition he is proving to be. And once again, the Blue Jays front office, not to say that they're perfect because they've made their mistakes like anybody has, but that they've made so many good moves. And I really wish those people who still continue to doubt Ross Atkins and just don't think he's doing any kind of a good job at all would pay attention to things like that, things that they really do get right that help the team. So Chatwood's back. Jordan Romano is also back, so great to see him back. He's gotten into a couple of games. Unfortunately, the first one, Charlie Montoyo said he would put Romano right back into high leverage innings because that's what he was doing before, and he did last Saturday. And unfortunately, he wasn't sharp, and he ended up giving up 2 runs in a game that had been tied, and that was the difference in the game. So unfortunately, Romano did pitch actually yesterday as well in lower leverage, and he managed to pitch a scoreless inning. So hopefully they can kind of ease him back into a regular workload that way, and hopefully he can be the sharp pitcher that we know he can be when he is on top of his game. Tanner Roark's actually been away from the team. He was put on the family medical emergency list, and as much as any Blue Jay fan, I have had my comments about Tanner Roark and his lack of effectiveness in terms of a pitcher. But when it comes to family, all kidding aside, so whatever is going on, Mr. Roark, all the best to you and your family. Hope everything works out, and fingers crossed for all of you. Thoughts and prayers, as people say. So he'll be back when he's ready to be back, whenever that is. George Springer finally made his Blue Jays regular season debut yesterday, so it sounds like he's still not completely 100% because he was the DH yesterday, and it sounds like he'll actually see some time at DH this season for the next little while until they feel that he's 100%. So, and he did go 0 for 4 yesterday, but again, but remember that he's been on a layoff of several weeks. I'm sure he's somewhat rusty. It's only natural, and he'll get back to hitting. I'm looking forward to his first hit as a Blue Jay. I'm looking forward to him contributing offensively, at least for the next little while, and I'm sure it's going to happen. He's been a terrific hitter in his career. So something interesting that happened when Springer was activated is they needed to create a roster spot, and we were kind of talking behind the scenes about, who we thought would go and why this person instead of that person. And actually, if any of you caught the podcast this past Monday, there was a conversation about it, and it started actually with Santiago Espinal. That a lot of us really like Espinal and what he brings to the table. And we were saying, okay, if Espinal should stay, if the Jays are going to make the decision to keep him, who do they either option or DFA instead? And we talked about some possibilities, and then Steve Feck, as I kind of thought he would be because he's made these comments before, he was saying that the person who should be the odd man out was Rowdy Tellez. And perhaps he inspired Sean Doyle, who wrote an article, a very interesting article about that the next day, about how Rowdy Tellez should really be the odd one out. He does have options, so it's not like you would have to DFA him and risk losing him in the organization altogether. So, but I'll be honest, the move surprised me a little bit. I can see the logic to it because, I mean, you've got guys like Espinal and even Joe Panik, who are more versatile. They have a bit more value defensively. I'll get into a little bit of that later. And then you've got Rowdy Tellez. He started the season. He went a while before he even got a hit. Now his bat has heated up, but you definitely don't need him playing first base. I mean, we've got our superstar first baseman, Vlad Jr., playing out of his mind finally, living up to the offensive promise that he had and that we've been waiting for the last 2 years of his MLB career, and it looks like he's finally arrived. So you really don't need Rowdy for first. So what do you do with him? Does he play DH? It sounds like George Springer, who's had the longer career and more consistent success, might be the DH for the next little while. So did it really make sense to keep Rowdy Tellez? I mean, there's only so many roster spots and so much playing time. I kind of, as I said, I almost felt like it was a done decision that they were just going to option Espinal anyway because he's the younger player in terms of his major league experience. And I kind of felt like he might be up and down this season, and he still might be later on. But I'm really glad that they kept Espinal. And Rowdy, all the best to you. I'm sure you'll be back up at some point. And yeah, hopefully you can hit well. Still waiting on Teoscar Hernandez. So he has apparently been cleared from the COVID list. So he's now officially tested negative. He's been allowed to re-enter the complex, resume baseball activities, and so forth. And just waiting, I guess, until they feel he is game ready enough that they want to activate him and get him back into games. So hopefully that'll be fairly soon, maybe even tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. All right, so on to the heart of tonight's lineup. So the last week, since the last time we were here, the Jays have played 5 games with a couple of scheduled off days, and they went 3-2. And I'm quite happy with that. I'm particularly happy that they took a series from the Tampa Bay Rays 2-1 in Tropicana Field, which, if you know the Blue Jays, if you know their history, playing the Rays at the Trop absolutely gives them fits. So that they were able to take 2 out of 3, and I'm delighted about that, because that's a tough team, because they went to the World Series last year, and because that they're a division rival. So it always helps to beat your division rivals and gain some ground on them in the standings in that way. Excuse me one moment. So yeah, a lot to like from the past week. So they beat in game 1 of that series versus the Rays. The Rays started Tyler Glasnow, who came into the game with an ERA under 1. He had, I know it's early in the season, we're still only in late April, but I mean, Glasnow had just been lights out. He wasn't giving up anything to anyone, and the Blue Jays go out and tag him for 5 earned runs over 6 innings pitched, and the victory. That's really great. And then on Tuesday, in the first game of a short 2-game series against the Washington Nationals, they faced another ace-caliber pitcher, Max Scherzer, who again has been pitching lights out this season. And again, 5 innings pitched and 5 earned runs. So that's exciting to me, because it tells me that this team that overall, they've actually struggled offensively early in the season, but they can hit. They've got talent on this team, and they've got guys who are actually capable of hitting elite pitching. So assuming the Jays do get into the playoffs, and I'm still assuming that they at least have a chance, that they will at some point have to get past some good pitching on other teams if they want to win some games, maybe advance a series or 2, and they have the capability of doing that. It's not like they're automatically going to be overmatched. So that's a couple of positives there. The Sunday's game, so I looked at the starting lineup before the game, and Charlie Montoyo actually did something different, and I really commend him. Rather than just going out there and pretty much writing out the same lineup day after day after day, he's a smart man, and he sees what's going on with this team, and he sees the things that are working and the things that haven't been working very well so far this season. I very much like Bo Bichette. I very much like Kevin Biggio, but if you're being realistic and you've been watching this team, they are 2 guys who, if they're going to continue to play at shortstop and at second base, need to improve their defense. Their defense, unfortunately, has cost this team so far this year. They're not the only ones who need to improve their defense, but they're 2 guys who definitely do. So Sunday, the finale, the series finale at the Trop, Jays had a chance to win. They were going with their ace Hyunjin Ryu, and with him, I mean he's a ground ball pitcher. He'll put the team will put some balls in play when he's on the mound. So you want a strong defense around him. And Charlie Montoyo had Santiago Espinal playing third, Marcus Simeon playing shortstop, and Joe Panik playing second base. And at this point in Joe Panik's career, second base might be the best defensive position for him. And it worked. It went really well. It ended up being a 1-0 victory for the Jays. Santiago Espinal also drove in the winning run, the only run of the day for either team. And I mean, there was some good defense played. Espinal made a couple of plays that honestly I don't think any other third baseman the Jays currently have, at least on the major league roster. I don't think any of the others would have made a couple of the plays that he made, and he has a good arm, and he makes strong throws over to first base, and as a fan, I don't watch balls that are hit to him and almost hold my breath wondering what the heck is going to happen. So I like seeing that. I like seeing that they can play small ball and win those close games that where pitching, defense, and just enough timely hitting to get it done. So for me, I love that. It's kind of old school baseball, and I like that. On the other hand, there was the game on Tuesday. So, I mean, you like a low-scoring 1-0 game? That's great. Well, how about a slugfest? How about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and his 3 home runs, 7 RBIs in a game that the Jays won 9-5, and they were down. They were down early. They were down by a score of 3-0 when Guerrero came to the plate. Bases loaded, 1 out, and you weren't quite sure what was going to happen against Max Scherzer, and Guerrero made him pay. Grand slam. Jays took the lead, and they never looked back, so to speak. They never relinquished the lead or anything like that. Washington did get a couple more runs, and then Guerrero, in addition to the grand slam, added a solo home run also against Max Scherzer and a 2-run home run against the bullpen. So yeah, have yourself a game there, Vlad. I think, as I've said before, I think on this show and on some other podcasts as well, I think Guerrero is going to at least compete for league MVP. I think he's having that kind of a season, and he's really broken out with the hitting talent that pretty much everyone knew he always had, but he had to find a way to unlock it. Whether he largely did that for himself, everybody knows in the off season that he rededicated himself to his conditioning, lost quite a bit of weight. I mean, I don't want to overstate that fact. It's been stated a lot, but I mean, if that helps him, if that gives him more speed, more flexibility, just more of the ability to do the things that ball players are able to do and need to do if they want to be successful, then great on him. And he's been great. So yes, he has a 1.141 OPS. I would almost say player of the month if it weren't for a certain Mr. Mike Trout, who's actually doing better than that. That last time I checked, he was at 1.3 something. So he's probably going to be your player of the month, I would think. But yeah, Vlad is doing great, and I really feel good that he's found himself in major leagues, and he's only going to keep it up and continue to do really well. So those are the positives from this past week. Some other things that haven't been that great. So Ryu, who got the start on Sunday, unfortunately, he had to leave in the 3rd inning. He had a glute strain. They were calling it a mild glute strain and saying that it wasn't all that serious. He has gone on the injured list, unfortunately, although from what I'm hearing from a couple of different sources, that really this IL stint is more of a precautionary thing than anything. It's a long season ahead. Ryu has had a history of injuries. That the Jays were well aware of that when they signed him as a free agent a little over a year ago. And so they just want to make sure that this doesn't turn into anything too serious. So he's getting a bit of a break. I hear that they do still expect him to make a start next week in Oakland against the A's. And by my calculations, the first day he would be eligible to come off the IL would actually be a week today on Thursday. So again, hopefully he'll pitch. Hopefully he does well. Hopefully the Jays win that series. And just keep moving forward. So that's Ryu. Steven Matz, unfortunately, yesterday had his worst outing of the season to date. He had really been great. He had 4 wins, and he just really looked and really has looked like vintage Steven Matz, the way he was with the Mets in 2015 and 2016. I've heard from people who really follow the Mets that he was a really strong, dominant pitcher. Now, of course, that's going back a few years, but after that, he wasn't really as consistent and just didn't have a good year last year at all. And then the Jays were able to get him in a trade. So one bad start. Hopefully that's all that is. Hopefully Mats can manage to bounce back and pitch like he had been prior to yesterday. And I mean, the Jays they're getting it done a lot of the time. A lot of what they're doing is winning with their bullpen. Their bullpen overall has just done so well. I mean, their ERA, last time I heard it was 2-something, best ERA of any bullpen in Major League Baseball. So that's just phenomenal. And again, give Ross Atkins credit for putting this group of guys together that has been able to get it done. What I don't want to see is them really getting overused and overworked, because I mean, there have been times whether someone's not pitching effectively, like Matt's yesterday, whether someone has an injury like Ryu on Sunday. Excuse me a second. Or like Robbie Ray a couple of starts ago, where he managed to shut out the opposition over 5 innings, but he walked 6 batters. So just because of that, his pitch count was elevated, and I guess they thought it was time to get him out of there. So I really don't want to see them overwork and overuse their bullpen, and for that to continue for all that much longer, because eventually these guys are going to get burnt out. They're going to get overused, and they're going to lose their effectiveness. So I'm really hoping that doesn't happen. There could be reinforcements on the way. So apparently Nate Pearson is starting a game today at Dunedin I think pitching for the alternate training site against another team's alternate training site team. In any case, he's scheduled to go a few innings, and then they're saying, I don't know if it'll work out this way or not, but they're saying that on regular 4 days of rest, that would put him in line to start next Tuesday for the Blue Jays in Oakland, assuming that they felt that he was built up enough and effective enough that they wanted to call him up. So very excited to see Nate Pearson when they deem that he is ready to be called up. I mean, we've heard about his talent for a few years. We've heard some great minor league results, and his actual spring training last year, I was down there for a week, and he was just like lights out. I mean, legit major league hitters couldn't do anything against him. Once the season finally started in late July last year, he wasn't nearly as effective. We don't know to what extent, because he ended up on the injured list. How much did the injury actually play into his lack of effectiveness? He did get into a postseason game for the Jays last year, and I think he pitched 2 or 3 innings, and he looked really good, didn't allow any runs. So hopefully that's the Nate Pearson that we can see at some point, hopefully sooner than later. Some other interesting news that was released today. I actually shied a video on Twitter, tweeted out some minor league assignments. So who's starting this season when the minors start, which is coming up soon. It's early in May, and who's starting where. AAA, AA, and then there's only 4 levels now. In the past, there were a lot more. So you've got AAA, AA, High A, and Low A. And so Vancouver is actually High A, and the Dunedin Blue Jays are the Low A team. So the one thing in all of that caught my eye more than anything else is Alek Manoah. I don't know why, but for some reason I assumed that he, along with Simeon Woods Richardson, would both start the season at AA with the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. Woods Richardson, say that 5 times fast. He is being assigned to AA to start the season, but Alek Manoah is not. Alek Manoah is starting the season at AAA. So that kind of caught some people's attention, and there was a conversation about that, and we're kind of wondering if Manoah being at AAA means that the Jays, I mean, I'm sure he caught their attention with what he did in spring training, striking out like a zillion hitters or so. I believe 7 innings pitched and 15 strikeouts in total, only 1 hit, no runs, and no walks at all. So yeah, he absolutely looked ready to not only face major league hitters, but dominate major league hitters. But that was in spring training. That was over a few games. And you don't want to get too way ahead of yourself. Some people thought, oh, the Jays need pitching. Let's call him up. Let's add him to the roster to start the season. I think they were right to pump the brakes just a little bit in terms of his professional career. Manoah was drafted by the Jays in 2019. He had pitched at college, so so he had some experience at a high level, at a competitive level pitching, and he'd done well. So they assigned him, being brand new to the minor leagues, to what was at the time Low A ball, which was the Vancouver Canadians. He pitched in 6 games. He had success. He had a 2.65 ERA. But again, it would have been quite the jump for him to go from Low A ball all the way to Major League Baseball, and with a year last year of, was it inactivity? He was at the alternate training site, so presumably there was some high-level instruction, and that he got to pitch against some batters that were either major league and just didn't major league caliber, but maybe didn't make a roster, or very close to being MLB ready, guys that the organization thought enough of that they wanted them to play at the alt training site. So, it wasn't completely inactive, but it's not the same, I don't think, as playing in a season and being competitive and in that way, and trying to win games, and as well as honing your skills and trying to make it up to the biggest level. So we'll see. It's interesting, again, him starting the season at AAA. He's someone that I'm going to be keeping a close eye on, and we're sort of wondering if the Jays are looking at him as a possible call-up sometime in 2021. And a lot will depend, on how he does, because he'll be playing against the highest level of competition in terms of the hitters that he's facing, outside of making it to the major leagues. So let's see how he does on a regular basis. Let's watch him for who knows what, a month or two. And if he continues to pitch really, really well, and the Jays do need some pitching help. Right now they don't even really have 5 starters. When everybody's healthy, they've got 3, maybe 4, and then they've been going with scheduled bullpen days. So again, this is something that if they want to compete and contend this year, and they say that they do, and I believe that they do, I think they've got to sort that out and get more of a regular rotation, guys that can go deeper into games and not completely burn out your bullpen. So be interesting to see what happens with that. Sarah Salida, as a baseball fan and sports fan overall, I'd love to see a woman commentator so knowledgeable. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that comment. Yes, woman power. Yes, Sean Doyle, the founder and head honcho at Jays from the Couch, he's really great. He is very much an ally. So, for example, of women, he's never treated me any differently. He's given me a chance. He's been absolutely wonderful. And I mean, really, my whole experience here at Jays from the Couch, I've been given every opportunity. I'm treated very well. I'm not treated like, oh, you dumb woman, what the heck do you know about sports? So yeah, it's been a wonderful experience here. I can't say enough good things about it. Well, speaking of me talking and running my mouth off, it's almost the end of the show, which brings me to Through Blue Jay Colored Glasses. So again, tonight it's all about my outlook about the team and how I see them moving forward. So again, they had a 3-2 week. I know it's only 5 games out of a 162 game season, so it's a very small sample size. But having said that, that's still it's 3-2, which would translate to a 600 winning percentage if they were to continue to do that for however long. Win 3, lose 2, win another 3, lose another 2, and so forth. And just out of curiosity, I did some figuring, and were they to play 600 baseball for the rest of the season and add that to their record right now, they would finish the season with a record of 94-68. I'm pretty confident that would get them into the playoffs. I still very much do see them as a playoff team. I know they've had their rough edges. Right now, they're a game under 500. 4 games out of first place, but I really see them going forward. They haven't been overall, they haven't been firing on all cylinders yet. Again, they just got George Springer back. Teoscar Hernandez has missed some time. The pitching staff, it's almost been like a revolving door to the injured list, and they've managed to keep it together. That they've got other guys. I really hope Anthony Kay will get a call up and a longer look soon, because I think he's got some talent. Nate Pearson, possibly Alek Manoah. Like they've got some guys that are going to help them out, and some other guys that haven't been hitting as much. Vlad Guerrero Jr. needs some help on the offensive side, and I very much believe that it's coming. Kevin Biggio, he started the season not doing very well with the bat. He's hit better lately. Marcus Semien, other than hitting some home runs, the rest of his numbers weren't really all that great, but over the last week or so, he's done some better things. Lourdes Gurriel Jr., I know he's going to hit better than he has been. This guy has so much talent, and he's really done well over the last few seasons offensively. When you look at his numbers at the end of the season, I know they're going to be right there, as will Bo Bichette's. I mean, there's so many weapons on this team that I think the best is very much yet to come with them, and not just in future years. I'm talking about this year. I see them as a playoff team this year, and I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to them having a better playoffs than they had in 2020. Not that would take much, but it's coming. And on that note, that's about all I have to say on the subject for today. And thank you so much for tuning in. Let's go Blue Jays, and I'll see you next week at 7 p.m.